In today's video, I share the top 5 challenges that, as a financial advisor, I see men in particular face as they approach retirement and as they transition into maybe the first 18 to 24 months of retirement. And the first challenge is just our sense of identity. For many of us, we've been working 20, 30, 40 years, and our jobs have become a big part of not just how we spend our time, but of how we look at ourselves. Maybe we've been the primary breadwinner for our families. And that identity, that role is super important to us. And we've done a good job of saving. If you're married, both you and your spouse have done a good job of saving and investing. And now the need to add additional money to that savings has been greatly diminished, if not cut out entirely, which is something for both genders to celebrate. If you're married, for you and your spouse to celebrate. You didn't do it on your own. You did it with your spouse's help. It takes a partnership. But now that role's been taken away. That need to be a breadwinner, and that's a wonderful thing, right? There's a lot of pressure that comes with being the breadwinner, with paying down the mortgage, with saving money for the kids' college education. So there's a lot of pressure that's taken off of our shoulders, but it also leaves a void for us. So that's one of the first challenges, is just our identity and our sense of self. Okay, and the next thing is thinking about, as we approach retirement, and the sooner we can do this, whether it's 5 years before retirement, 2 years, or 6 months, but if we can do this before we retire, it's going to make the transition a lot easier, which is, after that vacation feeling, after that first couple months where it's like, oh my gosh, I finally made it. I don't have to wake up early. I don't have to fight traffic. The next question is, what are you going to do with your time? What are the things that are important to you? What's the next mountain that you want to climb? And thinking about that can be challenging. And again, for men, I've seen this with a lot of men. I've also seen it with women, but this video is about challenges for men. What's that next mountain that we're going to climb? What's our next challenge? We like challenges in our life, and many of those challenges were kind of spoon-fed to us, right? We had a plate full of challenges. There was no shortage of challenges. We were facing challenges at work. If you ran your own company, you knew what they were. You knew what after 20, 30, 40 years, you knew what levers you could pull when there were challenges to overcome them and to get back to whatever goal that you were on. So that's one of the pieces. But what's the new challenge going to be? What are you excited about? Is it mountain biking? Is it traveling? What is that next challenge? Is it going to be helping other people? Is it going to be looking at society and saying, how can we benefit society with our free time? But finding that next mountain is important. Okay, the next one, and frankly, many men don't do so well with this, and that is building friendships and building relationships outside of the work environment, right? When we're in a work environment, we kind of know there's a kind of a rules to the game, and many men feel comfortable knowing what those rules of engagement are, and whether it's a potential client that becomes a friend, whether it's a coworker that becomes a friend, whether it's a competitor that you enjoy giving a hard time to, right? In the work environment, for whatever reason, many men feel more comfortable making friends. And unfortunately, what that means is when we leave that work environment, it can be challenging. I know for myself, one of the things, I make friends more easily if I'm doing an activity with them. It doesn't have him or with another man or a woman. It doesn't have to be a work activity. But for instance, I like to ski, I like to mountain bike, and many of my best friends are friends that I made by doing those things. And so thinking about, what is that co-playing that you're going to do? I think it's called parallel play when my kids were younger. That it's one of the first steps that we all make as humans, as we're developing as a toddler, is we kind of parallel play with the kid next to us. And then we start playing together. And I think, maybe some of us men haven't outgrown that. And we still make our friends by parallel playing. And maybe that's mountain biking, maybe that's playing hockey, it's playing sports, whatever it is. But thinking about how are you going to make friends outside of work? How are you going to replace those friends? And again, the best time to do this is now. The best time is yours before you retire. And if you've already retired, it's the same thing with a tree. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So if you haven't planted that tree, go out there and do it. Okay, the next one. And, I am a proponent of being thoughtful and deliberate about when you retire. And I think many people delay retirement even though financially they could because they fear the transition. And candidly, that transition can be tough. Now, the good news is I've been as a financial advisor for over 20 years. I can tell you 80 to 90% of my male clients, once they go through that transition, they say, hey, Azul, I'm really glad I did this. And I'm glad I did it sooner rather than later. I'm glad I didn't unnecessarily give up 10 years of healthy retirement just because I didn't want to face that transition. But the transition is real. There's 4 phases to retirement. We talked earlier about the first one, where it's just the relief that gets off of your shoulders. It feels like vacation. But the second phase is loss, a feeling of loss, and frankly, for some people, a feeling of grief, and sometimes that goes into depression. It's grief over what you lost. Right, we've talked about it. You lost your easy identity. You have to come up with a new one. You've lost some of your easy friends that maybe you've known a long time. You've lost those friends through work, and you have to develop new ones. You've lost your routine and what you do for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And it's natural to grieve for that. And frankly, if you're not careful, it's natural to feel some depression. And I think for men, it's really important that we ask for help, that we call it what it is, we share with people how we're feeling, and we ask for help, and we reach out to people, and maybe we're spending more time with people than we were earlier. And frankly, because we need to spend time with them. But you know what? The good news is when you enter retirement, it's almost like moving to a town where everybody's from somewhere else. When you enter retirement, you're going to be making friends with people that have free time on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday that previously you weren't able to spend time with. And many of those folks are facing similar challenges or have just gone through similar challenges. And just like you and I probably like lending a hand to other people and helping other people through their challenges, helping them navigate challenges, other people want to do the same thing for us, but we have to ask. We have to be open, and we have to share with people, hey, I'm struggling with this, and have that conversation. And candidly, for some men, mea culpa, I'm in this group as well, it's hard to ask for help. But as a financial advisor that have seen hundreds of people transition into retirement, I think it's important that we're open about our feelings, what's working and what's not, and asking for help on the things that aren't working. Okay, so the financial side of things, getting prepared to retire is super difficult. In fact, almost half of all Americans have no retirement savings as they approach retirement. It's really, really a scary thing. And for many of my viewers, if you're watching a video like this, you've probably done a pretty good job saving financially for retirement. But it's not just thinking about the financial side of money for the security, but it's thinking about now it's time to spend it. And again, mea culpa for regular viewers, I tend to be a minimalist. I tend to sacrifice today for a more secure tomorrow. I tend to to sacrifice today Azul for tomorrow Azul. But at some point, it's time to transition. It's time for all of us. And it's time to think, you know what, this money is for today, for today's version of yourself. You know, a decade from now, you're going to be, if you're watching this video, you know, you might be 70 years old. You might be 80 years old. A decade from now, you're definitely going to be a decade older. And there's going to be things that you can't do with your money that you could do today. So I want you to be thinking about transitioning from being a saver into a spender so that you can do things that you enjoy. And then finally, well, actually I shouldn't say finally, I've got number 5 coming up. And then I've got a bonus for you. So the number 5 is thinking of your time in buckets. You know, not just thinking about, okay, I'm gonna do this someday. Well, you know, as we get older, someday is today. At some point, we're gonna run out of some days. So thinking about what are the activities you want to do that you're excited about doing, and coming up with a game plan for when would it be best to do this. Both for you, if you're married with your spouse, if you have a life partner with your life partner, and think about when do you want to do things, and thinking about your money. Think about the utility of your money. You know, spending $10,000 in your 60s is probably going to bring you more joy. No guarantees, but there's more adventures, there's more things you can do when you're 60 than when you're 90. You know, give a 90-year-old an extra $10,000, and for many people, it's not going to bring that much additional joy in their life, depending on where they're at in their life. And then the last thing is just health. You know, this is the bonus one. And I think it's easy to put off focusing on our health. And the reality is men have a shorter lifespan, and we also have a shorter health span. So it's not just about how long we live, but it's the quality of that life. And I want to encourage you, it can be a challenge to take the time. And you know, if you were working, if you had a 2-hour commute, an hour each way, maybe you didn't have much time. But hopefully here in retirement, you will have time. And related to that, I want you to enjoy the journey. You know, I'm talking about preparing for retirement, but it's not just about getting to that starting point of retirement. It's also about enjoying the journey, and that's why I made this video up here. 7 things that I want you to think about stop doing in your 50s and 60s in order to enjoy the journey more. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in there. Bye-bye.